Hi everyone, welcome to this first Tour de France video for the 2020 edition. Well, we didn't think the Tour was going to take place at one stage this year, but pleased to report it is. It starts today, the 29th of August, and what an incredible route the organisers have set out. Must have had a good look at this. Potentially, we could be in for one of the most exciting Tour de France's. The route is set up for ambushes, set up for attacks, and we've got two very strong teams in Ineos and Jumbo-Visma that should be going up against each other. I also think that could open up opportunities for other teams. We just have to hope that the teams do stay at full strength, because I think the last thing we want is a truly dominant team controlling this race. Let's get straight to the outright betting on this show. I'm just going to share a couple of my outright picks with you. I will be focusing more on the stages, though, largely because of COVID-19, amongst other things. It's just you can't back at the moment with any confidence. So be focusing on the stages. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, then please do go down below and hit the subscribe button, and make sure you don't miss any of our daily videos. Let's have a look at the outright betting to begin with. I'm on the Sunbet website. As far as South African punters go, I can tell you Sunbet have got a top-class cycling offering. Right, Egan Bernal, there's been money for him in the week. He's reportedly virtually over his back injury or his back problems that he was suffering in the Dauphiné de Libéré, and he is at 2-1 for the win, 4-9 for a podium. Primoz Roglic been on the drift slightly this week. He's out to 9-4. Still talk that he may not be 100%, and that in itself is going to make for some interesting racing, because if you were Team Ineos and you knew that Roglic was perhaps sitting at 80% coming into the Tour de France, what are you going to do on stage 2, which I must tell you has got 2 Category 1 climbs? Well, you're probably going to try and put him under pressure and see if he shows any signs of weakness. Well, if he does show signs of weakness, he's got a very strong teammate in Tom Dumoulin, who's in at 5-1. I really do like the chances of Dumoulin. He probably has to hope that Roglic is not at 100%, because Primoz is more likely to get early position on him, in which case he'd probably be forced to work for him. The other thing about having two strong guys in the same team is, the guy who's sort of second doesn't get much of a chance unless there are some very strong guys in other teams, and that we certainly have this year. So you could get a situation, if we think back, Froome-Wiggins, I don't see that happening this year, because there's going to be other riders that can attack the leader, and let's just say that the rider who's second in the pecking order but potentially the strongest will have opportunities to get into contention by having to mark moves. Thibaut Pinot, the great French hope, he's 6-1. I can't have him this year. I just don't think he's got the temperament to win the Grand Tour. Although last year, you've got to say he was very unlucky with that injury and he came pretty close. Richard Carapaz, he's one of the beneficiaries, of course, of Froome and Thomas not starting for the Ineos team. He won the Giro last year with something of an outsider, and he took advantage of the fact that the favourites were marking each other. But he was incredibly strong. He, of course, is here to work for Bernal. But if given half the chance, you can bet he's going to throw himself into contention as well. He's 14-1. Here's the first time I fancies from a long-term betting perspective. Like I said, not going to be punting too much early doors. But Tadej Pogačar, he's 14-1. So impressed with him in the Vuelta last year. He's an absolute youngster, but he's got a real diesel engine on him, and he just keeps on getting stronger, it appears, as the Grand Tours progresses. I thought in his prep he wasn't at his best, but I actually quite like that. I think you want to hit the Tour de France in strong form, and you've got to hit it fairly strong this year because of the start is so hard. But at the same time, you don't necessarily want to be in your best form. You want to build into that throughout the Tour. He's 14-1. I'll cover that in my staking plan at the end. Quintana riding well. He did have a bit of an injury that he's recovering from, so perhaps not as strong as he was at the start of the season, but he's got to have a chance there at 25-1. Julian Alaphilippe, 28-1. No, not for me. He had a good year last year, but clearly couldn't hang on when the big mountains came. And this is a much tougher route and also a much more competitive race. And Alaphilippe, absolutely no chance in my opinion. I see he's 28-1. You can have 50-1 with me. Emmanuel Buchmann, 28-1. I like this man. I was on him for a podium last year. He ended up running 4th, but he does have an injury after his crash in the Dauphiné, so that's a bit of a worry. Reading between the lines, it does seem as though he's not going to be 100%, and that could be a big problem coming into this Tour de France, where there's no easy stages to get your way into things. Miguel, well, he also disappointed a little bit in some of the warm-ups. At one stage, I was eyeing him out. 33-1, it looks about right for Landa. He just always seems to find someone to beat him. Miguel Lopez of the Astana team. Here's someone I do think is a dark horse for the title. I was impressed by the way his form was building in the warm-up race, and I think that he could be a runner at 33-1. You'll see I've covered him in the staking plan. I'm not going to go any further down the list. Here's the podium prices over here. And there are plenty of markets. I'm just going to pop onto World Sports Betting now. Before I actually cover World Sports Betting, let's just talk about a little promo they've got. Tour de France 2020, back any rider to win the Tour de France stage. If your selection doesn't win but comes second, we'll refund your stake as a free bet. Now, that's a great special because particularly in the sprint stages where you've got like a Caleb Ewan and a Sam Bennett that are disputing favoritism, you can back one of them and you'll get your stake back as a free bet if you run second. So do take a look at their website. Of course, there are T&Cs in terms of turnover clauses there. But if I look at World Sports Betting, this is the market I want to come to of theirs. But let's just go and have a look at some of the range of markets. You've got King of the Mountains. You've got points classification. Plenty. And now the one I want to look at, though, is team classification lineups. And here, there's a couple of bets that I've singled out. They're both short prices, so you'll see I've thrown them into a double. Bora Hansgrohe against Team EF Education. I like EF Education, as the van does on the Good for the Game forum, to actually win the team prize potentially. I see they're into around 11 to 2 now, so they have shortened a little bit. And just a reminder that punters will be betting in the Good for the Game forum or posting their bets throughout the 3 weeks. I've put a link in the description box below. But EF Education at 9 to 20. And then let's have a look at the other one now, the order UAE Emirates. I also fancy them at a bit of 11 to 20, but we'll get into that staking plan now. There's also the green jersey, and we'll go back to Sunbet for this one. I want to just have a look at the podium for the green jersey. It's also called the points classification, of course. And here we got Peter Sagan. You can get 8 to 10 about him on World Sports Betting. He's as short as 11 to 20 here. And I'm going to actually go further down the list. I think this is a year. Look, Sagan, if he's on top form, will win it comfortably. But I think this is a year, given the route, that we could have some non-pure sprinters, if I can put it that way, contesting for the jersey. And I like a bit of Matteo Trentin for a podium here at 11 to 1. He's also priced up slightly. WSB don't have the podium finish for the point classification, but I think there was some 66 to 1 about him to win it. Look, I'm not going to get very involved at those sort of prices, but I might just have a little nibble. In fact, I think I'm going to. So let's have let me try and get my mouse working here. I've got the two monitors going, and half the time my mouse is on the wrong monitor. But I'm going to go across and let's have a look at my long-term betting strategy. Just take this off here. And we've got 1 unit on Pogacar to win at 14 to 1. That's at Sunbet. Lopez at 33 to 1, also taking that at Sunbet. I'm then taking, and I never covered this, but 2.5 units Port over Mas. That's at even money at WSB, and that's now in a match bet over the entire 3 weeks. I fancy Richie Port for a good one. He's nearing the end of his career. He's going up against the youngster here, but I'm not sure that Mas is going to hold it together for 3 weeks. And I think we're going to see a solid sort of top 5 or top 7 finish here from Richie Port. Team classification going 2.5 units. UAE over Bahrain and onto EF over Bora, and that works out at 6 to 4 at Sunbet, 11 to 20 UAE and 6 to 10 UAE and 11 to 20 EF. If I was a big hitter, and I don't like to do big hitting in cycling, but I would probably take that 11 to 20 EF over Bora. I think Bora coming in, obviously looking at Sagan for the green jersey, but also with a number of their riders carrying some injuries, and I think they're going to battle to have the consistency in the team competition. I want a quarter unit on Trentin to win the green jersey. Got to have it there just in case he pulls it off. But my main bet in that market will be Trentin green podium. That's the points classification, 11 to 1 at Sunbet. We are in for a cracking Tour de France. Remember to join us on the Good for the Game forum. You can also sign up for my newsletter in the description box below. And yeah, basically, we're in for some great punting. Take my advice if you're new to cycling punting. Don't get carried away. See this as having an extra interest in the race. I can promise you there's no better sport to bet on. Don't miss our daily previews. Hit the subscribe button now.